What is good? We're back. We got FFD Fantasy Redraft for your pleasure. We're going top 36 redraft full point PPR rankings. Obviously, no tight end premium, no super flex. So we're just going to go top to bottom, 1 through 36. No tiers on this one. We will eventually put them in tiers. And obviously, this list will be changing as we get news and notes and information. This is our first run through it. We should have positionals done in the next week on the Patreon side of things and be moving forward. We got projections as well. I believe I just started seeing those come in. So excited about this. Let's jump into it. We'll go 12 at a time. All right, my first 12 here. I got Bijan, Jamar Chase, Saquon Barkley, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey at 7, Malik Neighbors at 8, Puka Nacua at 9, Derrick Henry at 10, Genty at 11, and Drake London coming in at 12. Chev, who you got? Who's your first 12 in comparison?
Well. So we start out Bijan, and then we're going Jamar Chase, then Saquon, then CeeDee, then Jahmyr Gibbs, then CMC, then Justin Jefferson, Drake London, Devon Achane. Yeah. Nico Collins, Malik Neighbors, and Puka Nacua.
All right, so in our top 12s here, you've got Jefferson a little bit further down than I think most, or at least I do here. Is it injury related, quarterback related? Why the slippage on, pretty much the most consistent wide receiver in the league since entering?
There's a number of things. There's the fact that we have some uncertainty at the quarterback position. There's the fact that Christian McCaffrey, when we're talking about Christian McCaffrey, if he plays all the games, he's going to average around between 21 and 25 points a game in full PPR. So nothing crazy. Like I just got Christian McCaffrey ahead because right now he's healthy. Right. And, that to me signals, it's signal, not noise. And the signal, just like last year when they were like, he's going to miss all of preseason. Mm-hmm. The signal now is that he's completely healthy. And I want to be early to that party.
Yeah, both of us have McCaffrey 6 and 7. We're both back all the way in. I'm not scared to take him. I'm actually excited to take him because if it does go, you know how good it's going to be. Now, there's plenty of people who are scorn lovers who got burned by Christian McCaffrey last year, and they're going to say no way. But I'm okay with that. I don't really live my life. Circumstances happen. He seems fine. There's been no setbacks. He's been healthy the entire time. Haven't heard anything about it. Now, older guy, anything could happen in season. Kind of the way the Niners are right now, he factors in to be a big part of what they're going to do once again. Right now, they should rotate him a little, but even if they rotate him a little bit, still going to be just a PPR absolute machine. Niners have a great run scheme. Christian McCaffrey's out there and healthy. To me, yeah, I'm with you. I like him as 6-7. So we're kind of lockstep there. What's that?
Perfect back, perfect system.
Mm-hmm. I would say, the hardest guy right now for me to rank is Puka, I think, only because the Stafford stuff just keeps getting a little more, the layers of the onion keep getting peeled back. And it seems like, I don't know how long he's needed a backiotomy, but, he's out there. And like, the thing is like, I think he'll probably be just fine, but like just an odd shot, you get a little older, you do something weird to your back or you get beat up, by a big defensive lineman and somebody lands on top of you or something. And all of a sudden your Puka shares are a little scared. So Puka was definitely the hardest one for me here to rank, although I had a whole lot of confidence coming in until we started hearing about more Matthew Stafford back injuries. So Puka, a little bit of a pulled to the side at the moment for me, tentative on Puka currently.
the way that the Rams are acting, like it's not, like it wasn't a big deal. They weren't surprised by this. This is kind of part of the plan to let him, to let him rest and not really take part in their scrimmages. Pardon me, and all that stuff. I was like, okay, that's fine. He's old. He doesn't have to do.
Sure.
Doesn't have. And then you start using words like epidural.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have needle. Kids, you know exactly what an epidural is.
Right.
And like, that doesn't seem like something that you want somebody who's got to go play American tackle football. That's not something you want somebody to be going through.
Right.
Especially during training camp when you're supposed to be playing football.
Yeah, or at least like just kind of practicing and knowing, hey, don't mess with him a little bit here. He'll be fine, but now it just, I don't know. So tentative on Puka, but I love the player, and if Stafford's in there, absolute. I think it's a smash. 17, 18 points a game. He's been fantastic. Yeah. The other ones that I think people will raise questions on your side would probably be the Drake London Achane. I have Drake London at 12, just above the Nikos, the Brian Thomas, and the St. Brown. And we'll talk about that when we get into the second round, kind of why. I've got Drake there because I just, I think the volume's going to be good. I think the TDs are going to be there. I think Penix has got a howitzer. He can put it anywhere he wants, pretty much at any time. We saw that on some big third downs last year. Now, I don't think it's going to be what you saw week 18, where it was just a crazy amount of targets. But I think you will have some weeks where it's like, holy shit, those really piled up. And then the rest of the week, I think the floor is really, really safe on Drake. And I think he's just a great player. So I've got him slightly above those guys, just as far as what I think the consistency could be week over week. But you've got Achane and Drake a little bit higher.
Yeah, I mean, so with Achane, we're talking about a guy who's been basically PPR gold with Tua in the lineup. Yeah. So unless we're going to immediately assume that Tua misses a month's worth of the season again, Achane's locked for 100 targets. And they traded Jonnu Smith, who was splitting those underneath targets. So 111 targets out the door. Boom. Tyreek went from first read target share in 2023 to 45th in 2024. Even if you take those, that's with me taking that 3 to 7 week sample size, like week 3 to week 7 sample size of Tua being on IR. Mm-hmm. That's with me taking that out of the set from fantasy points data. So he's 45th in first read target share. So they changed the way that they play offense, and it's now geared towards giving, another guy with lightning speed, quality touches. And I think that O-line, that was one of the worst in the NFL, I think they can maybe inch their way towards respectability a little bit more. So if for me, if the explosive plays come back for Devon Achane, we're talking about an absolute game breaker for fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I struggled. I could have easily had him in the first round there, but I love him on the turn. I love the turn right now in fantasy. But yeah, no, I think, I'll be interested to see where the Dolphins kind of come back and how they play off it. I feel like they really have to innovate a little bit in this offseason and get back to where they were. Tyreek clearly wasn't healthy last year, right? Just got through the season, had some surgeries, had another surgery, getting the screws and stuff pulled out there of the wrist. So, I think you'll see Tyreek spike kind of back up as long as he's healthy and his head's in the game. But Achane is I think it's a great button press right now. You just had him a little higher than most, but I'm with it. I can certainly get down with it.
If you're looking for more FFD, sign up for a Patreon or YouTube membership and get access to the ADP, Dynasty Rankings, the Rookie Draft Kit, and extra shows every week.
All right, let's go into the second 12. You good?
I'm good. We're going to kick this off, and it's a little weird for me now.
Okay. Who you got?
We retooled that first round to get all the guys that I'm perfectly biased towards, and I had to kick out a guy out of the first round because there's only 12 spots, and I got 12 people in there, and this guy wasn't one of them. So kicking it off, Ashton Genty, Derrick Henry, Brian Thomas Jr., Brock Bowers, Among Us St. Brown, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs, Kyron Williams, JT, Jonathan Taylor, AJ Brown, and Ladarius McConkey, the first and third.
All right. So for my 13 through 24 here, I've got Achane, like I said, could have flopped him with London pretty easily there. I got Nico Collins. I got Brian Thomas Jr. I got St. Brown. Then I have the 2 tight ends, Trey McBride, Brock Bowers. Then I'm coming in with Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, A.J. Brown, Ladd McConkey, JT, and Josh Jacobs coming in rounding out the top 24 there. Like I said, I have Drake just a hair above Nico, Brian Thomas, and St. Brown. Then I have Nico above those guys. He's just my favorite of all those. If he could play a full 17, I think he's, just like Drake London could be the dark horse, WR1 in that setting. Brian Thomas, the rest of all these guys should have high target shares as well. Brian Thomas Jr. should have a high target share. We saw exactly what we needed out of Brian Thomas last year to get excited about it, and really nothing's changed outside of they got rid of Christian Kirk. They got rid of Evan Ingram. They brought in potentially a part-time player on offense, Diami Brown and Brenton Strange, which, Brian Thomas should still be a smash here. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, the lowest of them all, just because a big change as far as environment. You lose your OC and your DC. I think he's still going to be just fine. Maybe it even gets better for him. Who knows? To me, I like those other 2 guys just a hair more than St. Brown coming into this season. Then I went with the 2 tight ends there. If you want the positional advantage each week, I'm fine with taking either one of those guys. If not, then you want to skip and push those guys down the board. Perfectly fine with that. I don't mind having, outscoring my opponent's tight end spot by a few points every week to get a little advantage. 2 of those guys are great. One of the guys that we're going to talk about a little later, though, could potentially be the best option of all these guys, so you could skip them, but I'm giving these guys their due here. Then I went with Chase Brown and Bucky Irving. To me, these guys are just in really good offenses and are pass catchers that can pass. They're pass catchers that can also run at a high level with some explosive runs as well in their game, right? So we saw Chase when he got the chance last year to just explode. They're saying, hey, even more screens, even more passes this year. Burrow loves him. And then obviously Bucky exploded last year. You got A.J. Brown, who's just perennially been fantastic. Ladd McConkey, obviously the Keenan Allen signing. I don't know really how much I care about that for Ladd at this point. And then JT, Josh Jacobs, just a little further down than those guys. Bell cows, but maybe not quite as catching as many balls as Chase Brown and Bucky Irving. So there's my top 24. What do you got over on your side? Any rationale of who, what, where, when, how?
Well, yeah, this ended up being a lot more running back heavy than I intended for it to be. But all these guys are guys that are either going to catch the majority of passes or just handle the majority of the workload. I mean, obviously, the biggest question here for a lot of people is going to be, oh, you said handle the majority of the workload. Either you're Team Bucky Irving or you're not. And I've been a notorious. I was late to the Bucky party. I was a Rachaad White guy. But now there's zero reason for me to question what his value is and what he represents and what we think is going to be one of the most elite offenses with an elite quarterback, with elite pass catching weapons, with, the guy who led them, who was designing their third downs, and they were number 1 in third down efficiency, calling the plays now with an elite offensive line. There's being wrong. It's better to be wrong and then right than never right at all. So I was wrong about Bucky last year. I want to be right now. So I'm in on Bucky Irving at the price point in the second round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people might. I got Jacobs maybe a little lower than our ADP has. I don't know where you have him. You have him at 19, maybe 20.
Yeah,
excuse me,
2-8, 20. Yep.
To me, it's just if there's another running back healthy and available, and I think if the quarterback's healthy and available, I think you see less Josh Jacobs than you saw last year, and that's really the only reason why I pushed him down a little bit, because I think you see more passing volume than running volume. Josh Jacobs is absolutely awesome, so it's a great button to press. I would just prefer to maybe have a few of those other guys ahead of them. You ready to jump into the last third of these rankings?
Yeah, I'll just say with Josh Jacobs, it's kind of your point about paying attention to the historical deployment of Matt LaFleur's running backs is a good one. And that doesn't mean Josh Jacobs isn't going to be awesome this year. It just means that we think that, one, there's room for someone else to get involved like it had been with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon for all those years. And two, they had been one of the most pass-heavy teams in the red zone with, first Aaron Rodgers and then, early on in Jordan Love's starts. So that's why, he's just a spot behind, his ADP is at 2. I've got him at 2.8, pick 20. He's at 19. So just slightly, nothing crazy, but just, again, if we had secure workhorse volume for Josh Jacobs, he'd be a first rounder.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And maybe some more slightly a little bit more passing upside, maybe pass catching upside with all those other guys. But hey, I still think it's a great pick. If you can get Josh Jacobs anywhere near the end of the second, I think that's awesome value. All right, let's jump into the third round here. I got Breece Hall leading it off. I've got Kyron Williams, Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, JSN. Then I got the 2 quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Then I got Kittle, Tyreek, Marv Harrison Jr., Terry McLaurin, and his fearless leader, Jaden Daniels, bringing up the rear at 36. Who's your final third, 25 through 36 here, Chev?
Hey, real quick, if you're not in the free Discord channel, what are you doing? Come mock it up, because the F ain't for fuck it up.
Started out with Trey McBride, pushed all the way down to the third round. There's only so much room. There's only 12 spots. So he gets pushed down to the third, and we'll talk about why that is for me a little bit, but he's still my tight end too. Garrett Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Devontae Adams, Josh Allen, JSN, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker, Mike Evans, Marion Hampton, George Kittle, and Breece Hall.
All right. We kind of alluded to it. You mentioned it. I mentioned it. George Kittle right now has continues to just sneak up into the third round here for me and you. And that's, kind of the preemptive conversation we had back there in the second when I was talking about the tight ends and you just mentioned them there. Like, because of the 49ers lack of pass catching availability for the wide receivers, we think that George Kittle's always perennially a top 3 to 5 tight end, if not the one, because of his yards and touchdowns, and the volume's just never quite up to snuff with those guys. We're under the assumption that maybe the volume gets a lot closer to those other guys this year. And so, you passing on potentially one of those other 2, Brock Bowers or Trey McBride, taking another position player and then sliding down and grabbing Kittle in the middle to late third, is maybe potentially a more better use of your resources, is kind of where your head's at.
Yeah. It makes it it's a tough click when you've got to choose between Brock Bowers and Brian Thomas Jr., Brock Bowers and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, those are like Brock Bowers or
in our ADP, it's Brock Bowers, Achane, Brian Thomas, AJ Brown, Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving. Those are the guys all around him, right?
Yeah. So that makes it, when you feel like you can get similar production, and this is not just us spewing, dissent about Brock Bowers. This is, hey, one guy was 15.5 points a game. Trey McBride was about 15.2 points a game. George Kittle was almost 16 points a game. And so when you're looking at that, you're like, okay, well, why wouldn't I want to take the guy who's going to average the same amount of points a game, but I can do it 2 rounds later and take another good player at a different position? Right.
Yeah. One of the other things I kind of wanted to touch on here was, the quarterbacks. I think they're a little later than where our ADP has them. We got Jaden Daniels at 311. We got Lamar at 304. And then we've got Josh Allen at 210. So I kind of grouped them together here near the end. I've got, for me personally, in this area, there's not that many dead spots where I'd want to take a quarterback. I'd rather just take skills, because as I get later in the draft, I can look at Bo Nix in the 9th. I can look at Drake May in the 12th. I can look at Justin Fields and then grab, somebody to back him up super late, and Justin Fields can score me top 5 points. So there's options. And then, if it's 4 point of passing touchdown, you want the guys with legs. So maybe you elevate those guys a little bit, but all those guys we just mentioned, as far as Allen, Daniels or at least Allen and Lamar have thrown a ton of touchdown passes as well. So you're getting the best of both worlds. So I get it. And with just like we were talking about positional advantage, the reason those guys are up here is because they do offer a positional advantage. But Hurts is probably like 2 rounds later than those guys, right? So there's still a bunch of options that I don't get too caught up in. Like if it was Tyreek Hill or Josh Allen, I'm going to probably take Josh Allen, but that's not at that point. Josh Allen's usually gone, right?
Right.
Lamar Jackson or Tyreek Hill. I might take the shot on Lamar Jackson there, just knowing what I'm getting. I still think Tyreek bounces back. He makes it in my top 36, but just barely. And I got a little bit of reservation on him and the Dolphins currently. So I don't know how you're judging the quarterbacks, but I pushed them down a little bit because they're just not typically something that I draft at this point in the draft. But
Correct.
There are a couple of spots where I could see, hey, yeah, I squeeze them in here.
Yeah, there gets to be a point on the board, and like just because these are our rankings, it doesn't mean that hey, I won't, I'm going to take this player over this player. If you have intel, this is a baseline. If you have intel that, there's a guy that you think is that's not gonna come back that you're high on, like click the button. You have context to your league. This is just kind of a baseline to get you going and give us a chance to work through this as players ourselves as we're getting into the thick of draft season with all this information. So but personally, I don't want to click the button. I don't want to click the button on quarterback early, but if I do, it's got to be one of the 2 guys that have just absolute game-breaking upside. Lamar's got a 27-point per game season under his belt. He averaged 25 last year and had the 4th highest passer rating of all time for a single season. So if you're going to do it, you want to do it with someone like a Lamar or a Josh Allen that has the crazy rushing upside along with, the high passing volume. Lamar ascended obviously to a different level, and Josh Allen has been a top 2 quarterback pretty much for the last like 5 or 6 years. And apparently he's got double-digit rushing touchdown upside. So it's just, the only reason to me that Jalen Hurts doesn't make this top 36 is because they were so run heavy. Otherwise, he would be firmly in this conversation as well.
Yeah, I threw Jaden Daniels in there last, but I could have easily went with a Kamara or a Kenneth Walker or even a Marion Hampton potentially, depending on where Najee ends up, to start the season. And I gotta say, if Jaden Daniels would
fireworks tent in New Mexico, what I heard.
Jaden Daniels to me is like the only time I've taken him in best balls or whatever is probably like a later 4th if he lasted, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm being super honest with having him at 36, so I might need to adjust my last player on here.
Yeah, that's maybe right? We're both not quarterback, early quarterback guys, but it felt weird. It feels weird to get down like good and well. You get into a single quarterback draft in a lot of leagues, and Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson ain't making it to the 3rd round.
Yeah. No, I could see. I could easily fill Devontae Adams into that last spot. You got Devontae Adams up here at 28, I think. So you feel fairly confident in Devontae Adams and out on Terry McLaurin, correct?
Yeah. I'm firmly now. This obviously changes if we continue to get the news of desperately needed backiotomy in Los Angeles. But
correct.
Right now, today, I'm assuming that he'll be ready, Matthew Stafford, that is, for week 1, and that he's going to be out there throwing passes, and he's going to be the field general. Now, if it's Jimmy Garoppolo, all of this is going to change rapidly, and it's going to change anyway because
of course,
it's early August.
Of course. If I could guarantee that Kenny played 16 games, 17 games, Kenny Walker would certainly be probably, 2nd round pick for me. Just with what I think that scheme is going to be, how dependent on the run game. He caught a bunch of balls last year, so we've finally put to bed the myth that Kenny can't catch balls. So just need him to stay healthy, and he could be in there. But he makes your list. Kamara makes your list. Mike Evans makes your list, and Amarion Hampton makes your list. And then those guys did not make mine. Tyreek didn't make your list. Marvin Harrison didn't make your list. Terry McLaurin didn't make your list. And they're all mine. So there's some of the differences kind of at the end. Anything else you want to add in here before we check out?
So I wanted to ask you this, and I waited and purposefully didn't text you about it because I wanted to get your why are we not more aggressive about Mike Evans? Is it just that he's old now and there's age concerns? Because with no Chris Godwin, we know that Ibuka is going to command targets, right? Mm-hmm. But there's no question about who the alpha in the passing game is now.
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Mike Evans again could easily vie for my 36 spot and maybe should. I guess for me, I've gone through a lot of best balls and the redraft mocks and just haven't been pressing the button on Mike Evans. But when does Godwin come back and where does he kind of fit in? Is he right? Does it take weeks to get right? Is it 4 weeks into the season before you even see Godwin? I don't know. So that might hinge some of my decision. But no, you're right. I mean, I think Evans, should and would be and could be on in the top 36 or kind of sitting right outside there for me. So I got a bit of a log jam there at the end, but I think what has for sure exposed itself is Jaden Daniels is not my 36th player. So we got to get him out of there.
You're out of there.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap this one up. We're going to have positional rankings dropping on the Patreon side of things for redraft here in the next week or so. We got projections as well coming down the pike for the Patreon side of things. So we got a lot of good content coming your way. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. Make sure you're keeping it locked and loaded with the FFD. Like, subscribe, 5-star reviews. If you're listening on the pod on the new stuff, help your boys out. Chev, you got anything on the way out here? What do you got?
Man, this is really exciting. We got, there's actual preseason football, there's joint practices, all this stuff. Just very, very excited for this time of year. And, just appreciate you guys tapping in. And then as I always leave you, there's ball watchers and there's ball knowers. Assign yourselves accordingly. Till next time.
Get the FF out of here. Peace.